Goedemiddag. Hello everyone. We are here in Assen in the Netherlands at the TT circuit. We're super excited. The sun is shining. We're ready for the second race coming up today. And we're so thrilled because we have spectators. The fans are back. They're all there and they're ready to motivate the drivers. Yesterday they were here already and it really worked out very, very well. Obviously it's a fantastic feeling for the fans, for all of us. It's a way back to normality and yeah, super exciting. And also Robin Freins is second in the championship now, only 30 points behind Nico Müller. He's already sitting in the car and he's already ready for the qualifying. He's focusing, that's for sure, because surely he wants to catch up with Nico because it's all about the championship title. So let's see what the qualifying brings. Here's your commentator. Enjoy.
Thanks very much indeed, Verena. So, yes, Robin Freins, very much the man of the weekend so far, getting his maiden victory. And as Verena said, moving up to second place in the championship table ahead of Renee Rast. And now 30 points behind Nico Müller, the championship leader. Nico's got 149, Robin Freins has got 119, and Renee Rast is third now on 107 points. Welcome along then to the qualifying 2 show. My name's Chris Hartley, and I'm going to talk you through the qualifying and this afternoon's race. At the moment, it is bright and sunny, a little bit cool, but actually slightly warmer than it was this time yesterday. It's around about 16 degrees, but there's a bit of a breeze, and the real time feel of the air temperature is a little bit cooler than that. It's less humid than it was yesterday.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, go, go.
Cars then heading out onto the circuit. It's fresher than it was yesterday, it's less humid than it was yesterday, but there is a chance that this is all going to change when we get to the race, because the prediction is that between 1 and 3 o'clock there is a 51% chance there will be some rain. And we saw it yesterday, just after qualifying ended, the rain came down pretty heavily. And there was some indecision about what to do as you look at the championship leader Nico Müller in terms of which tyres to go for, dries or wet tyres. But it dried out very quickly while they're on the grid. The sun was out, there was a little bit of breeze, and by the time they had to make the decision on the grid, it was pretty obvious.
Copy.
Had that race started 20 minutes earlier yesterday, I think it would have been a very different kettle of fish. But for now, it's going to be dry conditions, and we should see some similar lap times to yesterday's qualifying. Lucas Auer, a race winner, one of the race winners that we've had so far this season. Nico Müller won the first 3 races.
Vittman and clock going, or they're queuing?
Everybody wants to know what everybody else is doing at the moment in this 30-minute session. So we've got a 20-minute session rather. We've got Nico Müller with 3 race wins. Robin Freins has had now 1 race win. Renee Rast has had 2, and Lucas Auer, the other race winner so far this season.
Generate your gap.
Yeah, I think I'd rather go now,
Copy.
to be honest. And I know everyone around me is on the same strategy.
Copy.
Jamie Green there, who had a bit of a miserable time of it yesterday. Battery failure on the car meant that he was unable to get off the grid onto the formation lap. And as he later explained,
Phoenix cars, I think it's green and it's Newey. It's queuing, the rest is in the garage.
more conversations about who's doing what, where everybody is, when they're going to go out, who's going to go first. But yeah, poor Jamie Green, battery died on the grid. That meant all the power steering had gone, so it was hard work for the marshals to push what was a pretty heavy car back through what's a fairly small gap through the barrier on the start-finish line back into the pit. So there was an extra formation lap. The race distance was cut slightly, and Jamie eventually got out, but 14 laps down. He was also, just to rub salt into the wounds, given a 60-second penalty at the end of the race for not doing his mandatory pit stop, because he was well out of it by then. It didn't really make a difference in the end, but just sort of compounded what was a bad day for Jamie, who, after the first weekend of the season at Spa, was in second place in the championship standings. He also, we didn't get a chance to talk about this really yesterday, but Jamie Green, that was also his 200th start yesterday in the DTM, moving him up now into the top 5 in terms of the number of drivers that have made the most race starts in DTM. Bernd Schneider, the multiple champion, with 236 DTM starts, holds the record. But Jamie Green's ahead of Matthias Ekström now and level with Manuel Reuter, 5th, equal most number of starts on 200. But we didn't get a chance to talk about it because he was never really involved in the race. Hopefully race number 201 is going to be much more successful for Jamie Green. It's been a pretty tough weekend here at Assen so far. So the clock has begun to tick and this 20-minute session with 30 seconds gone. Cars starting to trickle out onto the circuit now, and there is a great shot because that could be two big major rivals for this year's championship title. Nico Müller was in the foreground and Robin Freins, yesterday's winner, was just alongside him. The two teammates, of course, for Team Abt Sportsline, who extended their lead in the Teams Championship after that victory for Robin Freins yesterday, and a third-place finish for Nico Müller. 6th time Nico's been on the podium so far this season. Once has he not been on the podium, that was a 5th-place finish at the Lausitzring last time out. So in terms of the team standings, Abt Sportsline have got 268 points now. They've scored the most points in all but one of the 7 races so far. And Team Rosberg, Audi Sport Team Rosberg, 2nd on 154, but 114 points behind them. And then it's Audi Sport Team Phoenix who moved up to 3rd place after a fine 2nd place finish for Loic Duval, who led much of the race yesterday and was a very close 2nd, only half a second behind the eventual race winner Robin Freins. So Team Phoenix are 3rd on 109 points. BMW Team RMG, the best of the BMW squads, on 94 points, and it's now a huge advantage in the brand championship for Audi. They've got 482 points after yesterday, and BMW on 203. Timo Glock has said that it's going to be not a case of changing things overnight. The BMW missing at times 0.8 of a second and trying to understand how to improve the car, particularly in qualifying trim. Audi yesterday dominating the qualifying performance. Loic Duval setting a fastest time yesterday of 1 minute 23.341 seconds, and the best of the BMWs in qualifying yesterday was back in 7th place, and that was Lucas Auer, who was just over half a second slower than that time. So Loic Duval quickest yesterday, 1:23.341. That's the sort of time you're looking for. He was only 34 thousandths of a second quicker than Robin Freins, the eventual winner yesterday, and Nico Müller was 3rd quickest and about 1/10 of a second behind them. Renee Rast had his 2nd worst qualifying of the season so far, with 6th yesterday, and although he was in touch with the top 3 until about 6 or 7 minutes from the end of the race, he just faded away. Tyre degradation, a big issue here on this circuit, and Timo Glock's in an interview this morning saying that you just don't get any warning from one lap to the next. They just go away from you, and he was very much just trying to nurse the tyres on his car to make sure he had some life left in his shoes, as he said at the end of the race, to try and get a couple of points. Jonathan Aberdeen had a very good performance yesterday. He was the best of the BMWs in the race and scored points with a strong 6th place finish, following on from the 7th place that he scored in the previous race at Lausitzring around the full Grand Prix circuit. And there's only been a couple of races so far this season where Jonathan hasn't got that car up into the points, so moved up to 12th in the standings on 19 points with his best results of the season so far. And you can see there just how the cars hop and skip and bounce down the straights on the way into turns 6 and 7, especially when they are slightly heavier on fuel and the tyres are not yet up to temperature. You get all these sparks coming from the bottom of the car as it bottoms out here pretty aggressively, more aggressively than at many other circuits. Aberdeen set the quickest time so far, but it's not yet a competitive time. A lap or two to build up the temperature into the tyres. 1:31.2 is the quickest we've had so far, but we're going to be going at least 7 seconds a lap quicker than that. This is Aberdeen's attacking lap. Look at the sector times to see he's starting to get close to a really quick time now. The fastest first sector time yesterday was Duval with a 32.6, and Aberdeen's just done a 33.1, half a second away in the first sector. His second sector was the 32.2, and yesterday the best was an 18.5. So Sorry, 31.9. Sector 3, 18.5 seconds is the shortest sector. It's the quickest sector as well, as they take the 6th gear left-hander through Ramhock and the final chicane, which is taken at quite a bit of speed as well. Loic de Waal has got straight down into the 123s already, though. 123.429 for Loic. And that is a competitive time. Here's a replay of 2 wheels through the gravel for Lucas Auer, as he went a bit wide and a bit ragged. Rocky's got into the 123.7s to 2nd place. Habsburger qualified 4th yesterday and had a great start to the race, moved up to 2nd place in the early stages. Habsburg's 3rd, only 88 thousandths, slower than Rockenfeller. And Harrison Newey into the 123s as well. It's looking quicker already than it was yesterday. 123.9 for Newey in 4th, Aberdeen 123.9 in 5th. And Marco Vittman is just behind them, just outside the 123s. But Renee Rast now takes his turn at the top of the times with a 123.258. Just under 2/10 quicker than the fastest time of de Waal thus far. Robin Freins has just set the absolute best in the final sector, though. And he goes 2nd now, 123.411. That was only 18 thousandths of a second quicker than Loic de Waal. Muller's 4th. Rockenfeller 5th, Habsburg 6th, Newey's down to 7th now, and then it's Aberdeen, Vittman and Green rounding out the top 10. 11th Glock, 12th Kubica, who scored his first point yesterday, 10th place with a couple of late gains in the race, and Philippe Eng just coming to the pits 13th, Sheldon van der Linde 14th, Fabio Scherer 15th, Lucas Auer, who we saw getting it a bit wrong on the replay, in 16th place. Mike Rockenfeller, who was the last of the front runners to pit yesterday and was running in 5th place before the pit stops, had more than 10 seconds to close up to Renee Rast, which he did, overtook him with a few minutes to go and moved up to 4th position and was catching the top 3 but just ran out of time to do so. So this is Rocky attacking the curbs, just getting a little bit of drift on through that first part of the chicane. Through 17 he gets well out of shape, though, the second part of the chicane, and just sliding and therefore losing traction and losing forward momentum, and that would have cost him a little bit of time there. But he's still 5th quickest with a 123.710 second lap. Rast has come into the pits. How often does he do this, Renee Rast? He looks occasionally to struggle on the Saturday with the car and goes through everything with a fine tooth comb, figures it out, and the next day he's a different beast. Not that he's slow on a Saturday, but it's quite often, if he has had a struggle with the car, he's been able to find a way around it. That's why he's a 2-time champion and 19-time race winner in the DTM. The current grid, the most winning driver in the DTM. So the first part of qualifying complete. Renee Rast, 123.258 seconds, the quickest lap of the weekend so far. Robin Freins with a 123.411. Loic de Waal 123.429. There's nothing between those two. And then Muller is just about 0.4 of a second away with 123.651. Fully airborne there for Lucas Auer, who needs a tidier lap next time around. 124.579 is his best. That is 1.3 seconds away from provisional pole position, currently held by Renee Rast. All sorts of angles on the car from the various onboards showing that that was quite a rough ride over the curbs and airborne for the Austrian. Hopefully not too much damage, if any, to the undertray of his car. So Renee Rast leading the first half of proceedings here, the 33-year-old, who has had 14 pole positions so far in his career. And if an Audi gets pole position today, that'll be 15 on the trot for Audi in terms of pole position. At the moment, the best placed BMW is Marco Vittman in 7th position. Unlucky day yesterday for Marco, qualified in 10th place and very early on in the race got tagged by Fabio Scherer, who was trying to overtake Timo Glock and just went a bit deep on the brakes, clipped the back of Marco's car, sent him into a spin, and he was never able to recover from that. But looking a bit more pacey today in the qualifying session with that 123.8. So we are a 1/10 of a second or so quicker than yesterday's provisional pole time. Is there a bit more time out there? Possibly. I think there's been a bit of overnight rain Nothing has been out on the circuits in terms of support categories before this session, and therefore you'd expect the track to just grip up a little bit, get a bit more track temperature, get a bit more rubber out there. We might see some quicker times in the second half of the session. Marco Vittman, the double champion, who's currently running in 7th place in the standings, 123.8.
Marco, for your info, we will not have lap times in the data most likely because we're missing the beacon. This might also be the issue where you didn't see any lap time on the dash there.
Yeah, it's not nice because this is now the second or third time that we are missing either lap time or time diff, but yeah, interesting.
Yeah, a bit of a frustration that for Marco.
All teams are missing the beacon, so the lap trigger might be not set up. So.
Okay, copy.
That's Benjamin Schaefer, the other voice that you heard speaking to Marco. He's a race engineer at Team RMG. So some issue with the drivers not getting the lap time, the lap data while they're out there, which is oh so helpful when you're searching for just tenths, sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousandths of a second while you're out there. You need to know if you're down on the lap or up on the lap, or what you did right or wrong to either increase or decrease your lap time. So crowds flocking in. The first time we've had a live crowd here in 2020.
Yep,
exit. You didn't use DRS either.
I used it before. I used it after 9
I see. Yeah, I see.
8.
I see. Good.
Yeah, just apologies for Renee's colourful language there, as he works out what he did right and what he needs to improve upon, which is not much, you would suspect, as he's on provisional pole at the moment. And just talking about where he's using DRS as well, which you're allowed to do in the qualifying session. So he used it after turn 8, which is the 4th gear right-hander, one of the 90-degree right-handers at Siekenval in the middle sector of the lap. It's a little short straight between that right-hand corner and the almost 90-degree left-hander at turn 9. And there is a trace of the data that they go through while they are in the car in between the two stints in this 20-minute session. Shows traces of acceleration, brakes across the lap, how long they're braking for, how hard they're braking for, gear shifts, etc. Turning in. It was all there for them to figure out, and just to try and understand where they need to gain a bit more time compared to anybody else that's close and around them. Get to use the curbs quite a bit here at Assen. Sort of razor-toothed curbs, but they're not that high. So, as you can see, and have seen, the drivers
really
use them to their advantage.
Robin just looks like a little bit more understeer at the start of the lap, especially turn 6. Turn 6, you make a little bit back in turn 7. But it's not costing you speed, mid-corner speed in turn 3, 4, 5, and so much turn 1. Maybe a little bit break point turn 1. And in sector 2, Renee also uses push to pass in turn 8, or between turn 8 to 9.
The DRS, you mean?
DRS, yes.
So that's the same point between turns 8 and 9 where Renee Rast was talking about using it. That's Thomas Biermeyer, the team principal for Team AB Sportsline, a team that lead the championship standings and took Robin Fries to his maiden race victory yesterday, and have Nico Muller in the championship lead. He was living every moment of the closing stages of what was a very tight finish, with the top 3 crossing the line pretty much nose to tail at the end of yesterday's race, and 2 of his drivers involved in it. Cars heading back out on track then with just over 5.5 minutes left to go. Jamie Green in 10th place at the moment, not quite ready to leave the garage, but the reigning championship leader has gone out, Nico Muller, and so too his teammate Robin Fries. There they are, coming out together. We've seen a lot of each other so far this season, those two. Teammates, but serious rivals to one another for this year's championship title. It was his 45th race yesterday. It's 3rd season of DTM for Robin Fries, and he finally got that race victory. But he has already built up a good foundation of points coming into this weekend off the back of very consistent performances at Lausitzring and at Spa, where he'd already amassed 4 podium finishes before yesterday's race win. He's also doing extremely well in qualifying, and remember, you get points, championship points, if you qualify in the top 3. 3 points for pole, 2 points for second, 1 point if you qualify third. And as you can imagine, because he's had 4 pole positions this year, Robin Frijns is the driver that's scored the most points so far from qualifying. He's got 17 points already. So we get 18 points for finishing second in a race, so it's adding on another race result effectively. Last year, Renee Rast scored 35 points, so that's the equivalent of winning a race and getting a third place. That's 2 extra podium results for you just in qualifying points. And he was way clear of anybody else. He's not had such good qualifying this year, Renee Rast. It hasn't been bad, but hasn't been to the standards that he had last year, where he scored 8 pole positions. In 2019, when he scored 35 points, the next best was 16 points, and that was Marco Vittman, a BMW driver, who went on to finish third in the championship table last year. Robin Frijns, the best qualifier on average this year. His average grid is 1.6, so well clear. Although Nico Muller is not far back either. He's not been out of the top 3 in any of the qualifying sessions so far. Although he's only had 1 at pole in 2020, and the third best qualifier, as you can probably guess, is Renee Rast, the driver that you are now looking at. Yesterday we had, on the fastest laps and fastest sector times, no one driver was quicker than the others in more than a single sector. So Loic Duval was quickest in sector 1, Robin Frijns was quickest in sector 2, and Lucas Auer was quickest in sector 3. So it's one of those tracks where you maybe have to compromise the setup in one area to make sure you're quick in another, and overall get a quicker lap time. But nobody was dominating with being fastest in 2 or 3 of the sectors. So Rast defending a close to 0.2 of a second advantage for provisional pole position as they wind it up for one more attack now. Looking ahead to tomorrow's race, Mike Rockenfeller has been qualified pretty well this season, makes his way through the first corner at Harbocht and stays through the kink in 5th at Madik through Ossenbroken, the right-hander, which comes back on itself. It's 3rd gear, and then to turn 5, the left-hand hairpin at Stubborn. You slow the car down to 70 kilometres an hour, 1st gear. Jonathan Aberdeen there will stay to the left, make sure he stays out of the way of Mike Rockenfeller, who's about to go through to complete the first sector, which ends towards the end of this straight. And it's the absolute best first sector time so far for Mike Rockenfeller, 32.675 seconds. It's only a few thousandths slower than Duval's best time yesterday. A replay of Jonathan Aberdeen going wide, but Rocky on a good lap here through the speed trap, 258 kilometres an hour. That's his personal best as well. Making his way through sector 2 at the moment. Furthest point away from the start-finish line, coming back now through this very quick 3rd and final sector shortly. Duval has gone even a little bit quicker in the first sector though, an absolute best for Loic. Yesterday's pole sitter, 32.533, so a 10th quicker throughout first sector, and that's a 10th quicker than yesterday's best sector 1 time as well. It's a good lap this, if he can keep it up for Duval. He's had a personal best in sector 2, but for now, Rocky is going to shoot up the times to 2nd place. So Mike Rockenfeller, the 2013 champion, 123.365 seconds. He goes 2nd, but Frijns and Duval both on absolute flyers here. Duval's going to come across the line first. Is this going to be for provisional pole? Through he goes, and yes it is, 123.005. Oh, so close to the 122 second bracket. What about Robin Frijns? Personal best in the first sector. Rasta's going well as well. He's done the absolute best in sector 2, a 31.7. That's 0.2 quicker than the best sector 2 time yesterday. So Rast might be about to put himself back onto provisional pole position, at least for now. Yes, he is. And it's the first driver this weekend into the 122s. A new qualifying record. The second visits, the second year of DTM at Assen, 122.976. But Robin Frijns has had personal best in the first 2 sectors and is not far away from them. Not sure he's quite going to get provisional pole, but he might get himself on the front row of the grid. Let's see how good his final sector time is. Muller goes 3rd meanwhile, and here comes Robin Frijns over the line now. And where does he go? He goes 3rd. So 3rd place for Frijns with a 1:23.086. Cancellation of Fabio Scherer's lap time for failing to manage track limits. That was at turn 7. This is Ruskenhoek, one of the quicker left-hand corners in the middle of the lap. So we've got Rast quickest, De Waal second, Freins third, Muller fourth, Rockenfeller, who was provisionally on the front row not that long ago, fifth place, and Jonathan Aberdeen in sixth place. Personal best in the first two sectors. Rocky's headed back into the pits. Habsburg is seventh, Glock is eighth, Newey is ninth, and Kubica is in 10th place. Having got his best result yesterday, he might be about to get his best qualifying grid of the season so far. His first year of the DTM. Marco Vittman going on the attack. He's out of the top 10 now, but he's on a decent lap. Personal best in the first sector. Anybody else on a flyer? Ferdinand Habsburg might go well here because he's had a personal best in sector 2 and he's the absolute best in the third sector. And 123.534 was a good lap from Habsburg, but it was just a few thousandths slower than his best. He needed another half-tenth to get into the first three rows of the grid. Marco Vittman comes through, but loses time in the final sector with a 124.096. It's not a bad lap, but it's a couple of tenths away from his best. So Marco is not going to be in the top 10.
Please remember the data stick.
Very much in the top 10, though, is Renee Rast. Another pole position, 122.976. It's his 15th career pole in the DTM. He's only been doing this for 3 and a bit seasons. And that gives him a narrow advantage over Loic De Waal, yesterday's pole sitter. 29 thousandths of a second, the difference between them this time.
With you.
The gaps in qualifying this year have been ridiculously close. Before this qualifying session, the average gap between the top two in qualifying and the DTM was 0.095 seconds, so 95 thousandths of a second, less than a hundredth of a second. The average gap in qualifying, 18 thousandths of a second, the closest that we've had. But that's the second closest, with a tiny margin again between the top two. Renee Rast on pole position for this afternoon's race. Loic De Waal will be second on the grids. Robin Freins starts third. Nico Muller starts fourth. First time this year that Nico's been out of the top 3 in qualifying. 5th place for Rockefeller, 6th place for Aberdeen, once again flying the flag for BMW. Ferdinand Habsburg in 7th, Timo Glock in 8th, Harrison Newey 9th, and Robert Kubica with the best qualifying so far in 10th place. Destroying the bollards, that's on the way into turn 6. They were taking a hit on Friday as well, and not just from the DTM cars. Going a bit too ragged was Lucas Auer. He's going to start right at the back of the field. Highs and lows of motorsport, eh? Because on the last Sunday that we were in a DTM meeting at the Lausitzring, he ended up as a race winner, but he's at the opposite end of the grid for this one with much work to do. Even the quick guys were getting it a little bit ragged at times. Loic De Waal there riding the curves a bit too much. Marco Vittman with a loose back end on that BMW, only managing to qualify in the end in 11th place. Jamie Green back in 12th as well. It's just not clicked for Jamie this weekend. 13th for Ing, 14th for Van der Linde, 15th for Fabio Scherer, and 16th, as I say, for Lucas Auer. So 122.976 seconds. That is quite a lap from Renee Rast. I think Loic De Waal will be pleased, though. It's turning into his best overall weekend so far. If he can get a good result later on, maybe he can get his first DTM race victory this afternoon from the front row of the grid. He knows he's very much on the pace, and he certainly was able to keep the tyres alive in the closing laps yesterday. Much better than he'd managed in the longer runs and the free practice session on Friday. So he and the team have obviously figured out how to make it work. Renee Rast only fractionally ahead of him. A 123.005 second lap, though, from De Waal was very good indeed. And he was only, what, 81 thousandths of a second quicker than Robin Freins in 3rd place. So, Renee Rast on pole position, but we can hear now from the man that ran him very close in that session, who's down with Verena.
This guy did a great job with the 2nd place, Loic De Waal. Like, starting from P2, what are you going to do to hopefully today get your victory here?
It looks like yesterday was the starting position for the win. That's why I just ended up P2 in quali. No, I mean, I'm a little bit upset with myself because I did a big mistake in turn 10-11. So I think the pole was possible again today. But at the end, still, you know, P2, it's a good start position. I mean, it's the front row. Let's see how the weather will be. It looks like still some Audi at the front, so we will have to figure out between us which way to go. But again, same situation as yesterday. Happy to be on the front row. Let's see how the race will develop with the tires.
Looking forward to that. Thank you, Loic, and back to you.
Thanks, Verena. Yes, so he makes a good point, doesn't he? Robin Frijns had all these pole positions and couldn't win a race, and then he started second yesterday and won. So reverse psychology there with Loic Duval. But all joking aside, we saw the car getting pretty loose and pretty ragged over the curbs on the replay, and Loic saying, you know, I made a big mistake at turn 10 and turn 11, and he only just missed out on pole position in the end. Robin Frijns, off the back of his maiden victory yesterday, another good qualifying performance, is speaking to Verena.
So here's our local hero, Robin Frijns. Robin, yesterday was a fantastic day for you. Today, obviously, you want to repeat it probably, but from P3 it's going to be a tough race, right?
I'm sorry, I find it difficult to understand.
I just said you're starting in P3 today, and obviously you probably want to repeat yesterday's success, so what are you going to do?
Well, I think the start position is it's not bad. It's not great, obviously, but it's not bad. The race will be very interesting with weather changes all the time. I think at 12:30 or something there will be some raindrops, so that could play a big role of strategy-wise. But yeah, I think if we keep on doing this, keep on being in front, we will be fine at the end of the year.
All right, thank you so much, Robin. And let me just wave over to Renee. Maybe, yeah, there he is. Hello, Renee. It's good to see you in pole position. What are you going to do? I mean, you've got two guys behind you who are so eager to go first. So what are you going to do to hopefully claim victory?
Yeah, difficult to say. Yesterday in the race, the first stint was good. We could keep up with them in the pace, but the second stint not. So we need to understand, I hope we understood, how we can make the tire last longer. But I heard it's gonna rain, maybe. So this will change the whole game again. So let's see. I mean, I'm happy to be back on pole position because yesterday we struggled a bit. This year is quite difficult, but you know, this gives you a bit of confidence again to be back on pole.
Absolutely, and you're the reigning champion, so best of luck for the race, and back to the commentator.
Thanks very much, Verena. Yeah, second pole position of the season for Renee Rast, and of course more useful championship points. He'll get 3 for that to move on to 110 points. Robin Frijns gets a point as well to close to within 29 of the leader. Renee Rast and Loic Duval, the drivers that will share the front row of the grid for this afternoon's race. Robin Frijns, he heard from, starts third, and for the first time this season, Nico Muller is out of the top 3, starts fourth. Mike Rockenfeller and Jonathan Aberdeen share the third row of the grid, and then it's Ferdinand Habsburg. Still good qualifying, not quite as good as yesterday for him. Timo Glock alongside. Harrison Newby up there in the top 10 again, and for the first time, Robert Kubica will start the race in the top 10. Marco Vittman had a loose back end on that BMW. He starts 11th. Jamie Green is alongside in 12th. The penultimate row will comprise Philip Eng and Sheldon van der Linde, and the final row of the grid will be Fabio Scherer and Lucas Auer. So that is the way they will shape up for what should be a 55-minute plus 1 lap race this afternoon, which will get underway at just after 1:30 p.m. local time. Here, though, some super slow-mos of your fastest 3 drivers from the second qualifying session. Robin Frijns with a best time of 1 minute 23.086 seconds. Moves on to 120 points, within 29 now of the championship leader. And then second place, his best overall set of qualifying so far this year after yesterday's pole for Loic Duval, 123.005. But for the 15th time in his DTM career, it's Renee Rast that is going to be taking his Team Rosberg Audi to pole position with a fantastic lap time of 1 minute 22.976 seconds. It's dry now, but will we have a dry race this afternoon? We'll find out in a couple of hours' time. Hope you enjoyed our coverage of qualifying. Let's hand back now to Verena Rast to wrap up the show.
So after a very dry qualifying, let's see what the race brings. All eyes are on the weather. We don't know what Assen has in store for us. We will see. And again, it's going to be a bit of a gamble, surely, and you don't want to miss it. So enjoy the race in just a bit. But for now, enjoy the highlights, and I'll see you later for the race. Bye-bye.
We'll be right back.